So welcome everyone. It is an honor to have our two very special guest speakers today who will be talking about from isolation to elevation. We have Brother Wali Abdul Hanifzai, who is a master's in social work. This is his introduction. I would like to read it out. He migrated to the United States in the year 2000 from Afghanistan, and he spent his whole life in Los Angeles. Got his bachelor's degree from California State University, Northridge in criminology and a master's in social work. And now he's a PhD candidate in global leadership and change program at Pepperdine University. He is an associate clinical social worker who provides services to individuals, couples, families, seniors, and children. As a therapist, he is also passionate about his work with couples and helping overcome their challenges, whether that be communication problems, problems with extended family, in-laws, infidelity, pornography, much more. He is heavily using the Gottman method couples therapy to create change, and he makes his clients unlearn destructive behavior patterns and then play out in their relationships and teach clients how to effectively listen to their partner and find comfort in connection. His treatment models consist of cognitive behavior therapy, motivational, interviewing, dialectical behavior therapy, and Gottman method couples therapy. Welcome, Brother Wali. And we also have joining us today is Sister Lamba Aziz Hanifzai, Brother Wali's better half, I would say. She is a therapist, and she received a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of California, San Diego, completed her master's in marriage and family therapy at Alliant International University, the School of Professional Psychology. She is currently a doctoral candidate in the marriage and family therapy program. As a therapist, her work over the past several years has heavily been focused on working with couples, individuals, families, and children. And as a trained emotionally focused therapist, she uses attachment therapy to help couples overcome differences and build a secure and intimate relationship. Her work with children and families extensively focuses on helping improve communication while simultaneously addressing disorders such as depression, anxiety, trauma, suicidal ideation, ADHD, autism, and social phobias. She is also trained in plate therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, and dialectical behavior therapy therapist. In addition, her training is in eye movement desensitization therapy. It allows to help clients reprocess trauma and live a stress and anxiety-free life. Those are very valuable insights, and we are honored to have both of you present here today with us. And with that, I would like to introduce both our speakers. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. Thank you for having us here in your platform. It is always amazing and wonderful to be part of the Olive community. And I have the honor to spend time with the Olivers. It's always a blessing. I always enjoyed the great work that you guys do. Starting off from the very top. It either be Brother Muhammad, Sister Rubina, Sister Zainab, or even the Olivers, the work that you guys put into it and kind of you guys really have created a beautiful kind of a group for others. And it's a beautiful model that I think everybody that is watching this program or have not heard of Olive Community Services should definitely look into it. You guys have really created a beautiful embodiment of a community for our seniors and for our families. And thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Assalamualaikum. I wanted to say just kind of along the same words of thank you for having us so much here. I hope today's presentation is going to be very helpful for you. And I hope it becomes a two-way road where, we learn better what are the needs are of our community, our senior community, and be able to provide those needs in the future presentations. And so we just want to thank you for giving us the space and this time to go ahead and, just kind of share our own experiences and, really focus on this really, really important topic that sometimes gets forgotten about.
Absolutely. So what we'll go ahead and do is we'll start off with psychoeducating, everyone here today. And then after that, we'll go ahead and open the dialogue and do a Q&A session.
Perfect.
So today's topic that we wanted to discuss and is the topic that we chose was from isolation to elevation, right? It's something very important, right? What does that mean, right? What is isolation? I think this is something or a term that has been highly been defined or used amongst individuals, or what we're seeing is that it's a term that is being used among seniors most oftenly nowadays. And now once we talk about that, now what is kind of the interventions or what can be done in order to elevate yourself up and higher to make sure that you don't fall into that parameter of loneliness and social isolation. To get started, we wanted to talk about loneliness and health. In October 2018, the University of Michigan National Pool on Healthy Aging asked a national sample. They took a sample of about 50 of adults and seniors who were in the age range of 50 to 80 about their health behaviors and experiences and feelings related to companionship and social isolation. And what they found was that 1 in 3 respondents reported that there's a 34%, reported feeling a lack of companionship as they, between the ages of 50 and 80. 26% stated, some of the times, and then 8% said, often. Also, the report suggested that 27% reported feeling isolated from other people. 22% stated some of the times, and then 5% said, often. And this is something that happens, throughout the years.
So there's actually a lot of research on the impact of loneliness on their health and the impact of isolation on elders. So there was also a 2012 analysis by University of California, San Francisco, which found that loneliness among elder adults may be predictor of serious health problems or even death. So that specific study actually found that 43% of adults older than 65 felt lonely. Another study that was conducted in 2015 by Brigham Young University found that simply feeling lonely increases the risk of mortality by 26%. So just that, feeling of being alone, feeling lonely, feeling like there's no one there, feeling like there's nobody I can turn to, talk to, can increase the risk of mortality by 26%. And this is something that's not spoken a lot in our populations, in our communities. And so we felt like this was so important to go ahead and bring light to.
Absolutely. And then for those folks, that wanted to know, mortality, the term is used for, individuals. When we say increased risk of mortality, that means that the increased risk of death that they're having.
So now, what is really loneliness? How do we describe that term? So one of the, individuals in our society by the name of theorist Harry Stock Sullivan described loneliness as the worst emotional experience imaginable. He stated that the deepest emotional problems for people are loneliness, isolation, and low self-esteem. According to Weiss, who's another individual who talked about loneliness, he described it as a gnawing chronic disease without redeeming features. It has been recognized as a strong correlate of depressive symptoms.
Also, if you look at it, loneliness is different than being alone. Two different things. Loneliness is caused by something that is emotionally, you're emotionally being affected by not having as much interactions with people outside of yourself, right? That is something that is due to circumstances, due to the fact that, you don't have people around and you're trying to reach out to different individuals, but then there's nobody there. And that causes emotional stressors and causes emotional problems. And that leads to depression. It can lead to other mental health challenges or physical challenges versus when you're alone. That term is, when you're alone, that's something, a person willingly, chooses to be alone. and stays away from others versus you being lonely.
So that's a preference. You prefer the solitude instead of having a lot of people around you, instead of interacting with individuals. That's the big distinguishment between the two.
Absolutely. And then also loneliness makes a person vulnerable to different situations, such as, for instance, depression, use of drugs, high blood pressure, your cholesterol levels, go high. During times when you're experiencing yourself as fragmented or incomplete or visible to others around you, and when that feeling is accomplished by self-doubt, then you are likely to experience being alone, not as solitude, but also as being lonely in general.
Now, we also want to do a distinguishment between loneliness and depression, because loneliness is not depression. Loneliness can be a factor, like a risk factor, a red flag that can lead to depression, but it's not really translate into depression. So if we look at a definition of depression, depression is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness, a loss of interest. It affects how one can feel, the way they think, the way they behave, and it can lead to a variety of different emotional and physical problems. So that could also include, having difficulty completing daily tasks, having difficulty waking up in the morning, getting out of bed, feeling very unworthy, feeling like you're having really difficult sleep, like you're not getting good sleep, feeling like, you lost your appetite, or maybe your appetite has increased, but you're eating and you're not feeling very, enjoyment from that food that you're consuming. You don't want to go outside, you don't want to exercise. So that's more of what depression looks like. But again, loneliness is a major risk factor for depression. Now, we have a question for everyone today. Something that we want to know is your thoughts on whether somebody can be lonely and still complete essential daily tasks. What do you think?
Yes, most likely. Yeah, most likely, yes.
You're
I agree. Yes.
Perfect. You guys are absolutely correct. You can still be lonely and complete daily tasks that are essential for your life. However, that's much different when it comes to clinical depression. When you're clinically depressed, it's so difficult to wake up, to have a routine, to have a schedule that you're able to complete by the end of the day. Because you're feeling like you're in such a dark hole where it just feels like these tasks are meaningless for me. Why should I get up? Why should I do them? So we just really wanted to distinguish those two things.
Yeah, and thank you for indicating that. And also the difference, between, an individual that has mild depression versus severe depression, it's also important to indicate how that looks. Anyone who is having symptoms of depression or has one of the following symptoms, right? Either you're sleeping too much or sleeping too little, eating too much or eating too little, depending on your mood, how you are. If you're having crying spells, if it lasts for about 2 weeks and less, we usually say you're okay. You have like slightly mild depressed. You're depressed for like 2 weeks, but clinical depression and severe depression is associated with anything that prolongs more than 2 weeks or a month, and it's something that stays consistent for 3 months, 6 months, or it goes all the way towards 1 whole year. If you're having those symptoms, that means that you're severely depressed now. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about and take a look at social isolation. Social isolation has many causes and numerous definitions and characteristics. For instance, absence of supportive significant others, not having a partner or somebody around, lack of purpose or challenges. As we get older, right, life itself has meaning. What is the meaning behind us, waking up every single day? What is our daily tasks? What is our purpose for the week, for the month, for the year? It's very important that we have a purpose, and then we also challenge ourselves, right? And challenges do come on a day-to-day basis, but we want to make sure that we have a certain goal and we are working towards it. Mm-hmm. Aloneness imposed by others, right? And this is where we come in, right? You're socially isolated from people based on different circumstances, right? If you are coming in from a different country where you don't speak English, or you don't have means of transportation, it becomes a little challenging, right? Or you're not surrounded with your own community. That becomes challenging, and it could cause social isolation.
Right. Another good example would also be if you know, you have grandkids and you have your, you know, your son, your daughter, your in-laws living with you, but they all have something to do during the day. They go out to work for 8 hours a day. The kids are at school for 6 hours a day, and you're staying home by yourself. That could also be a form of aloneness that's imposed by others because they're all gone, they're all busy, but then you are staying at home. You don't have that interactions with those individuals anymore. So you could experience that sense of aloneness.
Absolutely. And what you guys are doing, you know, being here, you know, being or part of all of community services, it's an amazing initiative. And that's what I personally love the most about it for our elders and for seniors. The other characteristics that we want to look at is withdrawals because of hearing deficits, right? As we get older, we tend to notice that, you know, we're starting to have, you know, problems with hearing things, right? We got to speak louder. You start putting hearing aid, then devices in your ear to help you, right, hear better. Your vision starts to get blurred. Anything that you would do physically, right, starts to deteriorate because as we get older, research has also shown that after, you know, usually the age of 40 to 50, you know, our body starts to really deteriorate as we get older. Even our bone density starts to shrink and deteriorates. Feeling of rejection. This is also very important, right? Because when we're younger, when we are in our prime and we're working, there's a sense of, you know, value there. As we get older, I don't know if this is things that you guys have personally felt or have experienced, but I know working at the Adult Day Health Center, I would come across other seniors who would say, you know, as they have gotten older, and because they have, you know, they have started, either they are a stroke survivor or they've started to have Alzheimer's or dementia, their word is not being taken, you know, into consideration seriously anymore. And that really makes them feel rejected, right? As an individual, you've done so much, you're doing so much for your family, for your community, but as you get older, you don't get the same you know, you don't get the same acknowledgement, basically.
And I think another important aspect that we should also bring up is also discussing how our cultures are different, right? The cultures, and a lot of us have migrated here from different countries. So our cultures from those countries are much, much different than the cultures of the grandchildren who grow up here, or even the children that, you know, come here as young children who turn into adults. Their culture is very different. So sometimes as elders, when you share something, you may sometimes get some kind of feedback, some kind of response where it's like, well, you don't understand, like mom, dad, like you come from a different culture, you come from a different world. And so sometimes it may feel like there's almost like a battle when you're speaking to your children, when you're speaking to your grandchildren, and you're giving them advice because, you know, you have experience, and so you give them advice from a good place. But because there's a difference in culture, sometimes it may feel like you're being rejected.
And also, what we also call is a different, because of different cultures, generational gap as well,
Yeah.
if you notice or not. And the next thing we want to take a look at is limited mobility, right? You know, how mobile are you? Are you able to get from point A to point B? Do you have access? Do you have the resources needed to, you know, to go and meet your friends? And then lastly is, you know, visual impairment, as I discussed earlier on. Elder adults are particularly susceptible because of environmental structures and also loss of family or friends, and then inability to perform certain activities as well.
So then let's really talk about depression and isolation a bit more. So when emotions go unexpressed, we can become really depressed. We can become irritable. We can become emotionally unavailable. We almost check out because we feel like, you know, what's the point of me sharing my emotions? What if people don't want to hear them? What if I feel like my emotions are not important? What if I feel like there's no point in communicating anymore? We can become very checked out in those situations. Also, some days depression and loneliness can trigger withdrawals. So we're going to isolate from people instead of reaching out. Those days when we wake up and we feel like, you know, like the world isn't beautiful today. We feel like today is just such a difficult day to get up to and do any kind of work. Today's too difficult to go outside and see a friend. Instead of reaching out for help and saying, I'm having a hard day or I'm feeling very lonely, we sometimes might do the opposite of that, which is kind of, you know, shut ourselves away from the world. Instead of asking for help, we might just turn our backs and say, not today. Today, I'm just going to stay by myself. Something else is also making sure to take time for ourselves is very different from isolation. So the difference in that is when we're isolating from someone, we're avoiding something. We're avoiding to do something, right? We don't want to see someone that's too much effort. We don't want to take that much effort. We don't feel like we have the energy. Versus when we take the time to do something for ourselves, that's very different. That's self-care. Okay, today I want to take the time to go ahead and work on my rose garden. Today I want to take the time and enjoy just watching my show today because I've been looking forward to the new episode. So it's very different when you're isolating from something, you're avoiding to do something because you don't have the energy versus, okay, today I'm so aware of my body. Today I'm so aware of my mind, and my mind, my body are telling me to take care of myself, to spend some time at home today. We may also build walls around ourselves without knowing it. And that's really, really important because sometimes we may feel like, oh, the world doesn't care about me. You know, my friends don't care about me. My neighbors don't care around me. And so those thoughts can build a wall around us. But the reality is maybe we're not reaching out. Maybe they're not seeing us very often. So they don't know what's going on with us. They don't know that we're feeling lonely. They don't know that we want that companionship. We also can sometimes have fear of being judged by others. This can actually stop us from opening up to people when we're afraid that people are going to judge us. Well, if I tell my neighbor that, you know, I'm feeling lonely because my kids are always at work, my grandchildren are always at school, maybe they're going to judge me. Maybe they're going to judge my family. And so sometimes these thoughts of thinking that people are going to judge us can actually stop us from reaching out.
And also the other thing we always suggest is that even amongst your own family, right, your kids and grandkids, always speak to them. You know, share your thoughts and your feelings. And I know this varies based on different cultures and generations as well. Usually, growing up, certain generations and cultures don't really express their feelings, and it becomes challenging. They assume that, you know what, my kids or my grandkids will understand me, but in reality, they wouldn't. So it's important that you are able to express your thoughts and feelings with them, and that it's not a sign of weakness, or it's not a sign of you, showing any form of difficulties, or for you to not share any thoughts with them either. Now we're going to go ahead and continue with depression and isolation. How withdrawing heights the sense of isolation. Depression and isolations are part of the experience of grief as well. If you have lost somebody in your household, let's say it's your partner, it's a family member, or your best friend that you used to talk to, that can also lead to depression and social isolation, right? Because that was your social support system for years. You relied on them. They were always there, but now you don't have them. Sometimes it can become tricky, right? It's like, well, how do I go out and how do I make new friends?
Yeah. And that experience can become very isolating too, because when you have experienced loss, there are times when you find yourself in situations where other people have not experienced that. And so you feel so alone in your experience. You feel like, how can I enjoy these gatherings? How can I enjoy other people's, companionship when the person who meant so much to me is not in life anymore? Sometimes when we lose people in our life can start to feel like grayscale, like the color is gone from our life. And so it's very difficult to have that lens of ourselves, of our world, and be able to join somebody else's gathering or happiness, or just join being around somebody else, around a group of people, or just family or anyone, and feel like I can be present. Sometimes our grief can be so heavy that it stops you from being present with those people.
Absolutely. And then also you lose a sense of, some people, they lose a sense of the purpose of life as well when they lose their loved ones or somebody close to them.
Alexa, stop.
Now, in the midst of isolation and depression, we may wonder, why me? You're going to start questioning yourself, right? And a part of one of the stages that you'll experience, part of grief is bargaining. You will bargain with yourself, with God. Why me? Why did this happen to me? Why am I? Why is my loved ones being taken away from me? And now by reaching out to others, we can get extra support that can help us through difficult times.
So we kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about the risk of loneliness and isolation. And again, kind of review a bit more stats, because I think sometimes we're not aware of the stats. And when we're not aware of the stats, we don't really realize that this is a really big issue. This is something that's, that a lot of our elders are experiencing, and we can't turn a blind eye to it just because we're not experiencing it, because eventually we will. And so it's so, so important to bring awareness to this. So something that we wanted to talk about is just a little bit of the stats that are impacting our adults. So nearly 1 in 5 adults over the age of 50 is at risk of social isolation. Loneliness is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Like, let's just think about that stat. That loneliness is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Like, let's think about what that can do to our physical health, to our mental health, to our emotional health. It really chips pieces of us away on a daily basis. That's how serious loneliness can be. Loneliness is also associated with higher blood pressure and heart disease. And then subjective feelings of loneliness can increase risk of death from 26% to 45%. So the experience of feeling alone can increase the rate of death from 26% to 45%.
And also, going over more stats, health risk of loneliness, social isolation significantly increases a person's risk of premature death from all causes, a risk that may reveal those of smoking, obesity, physical inactivity. Social isolation has also been associated with about 50% increased risk of dementia. Now think of that. It's very important to understand that this is something that was reported by CDC. 50% increased risk of dementia when you are isolated from others. Poor social relationships is characterized by social isolations or loneliness was associated with 29% increased risk of heart disease and 32% increase of stroke. It's also associated with a higher rate of depression, anxiety, and also having suicidal thoughts and ideations. And this is something maybe it's not mentioned as much, but when it comes to suicide, having the thoughts and then, folks that actually go through with committing, with ending their lives, it's actually pretty high among seniors. People do not realize that, but seniors have thoughts of committing suicide because of social isolations and loneliness. Loneliness amongst health failure patients was associated with a nearly 4 times higher risks of death, and then also 68% increased risks of hospitalization and 57% increased risk of emergency room visits.
So something I'm wondering is, how do you guys recognize when you're feeling lonely, or maybe somebody in your community, in your family, in your relatives is feeling lonely? How do you notice that? What do you notice? What do you see that kind of gives you that signal?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm lonely, or that person may be lonely.
And you don't hear from them?
When you don't
Yeah.
hear from them, that's a good one.
Yeah.
What else? What are some of the other symptoms or things that you notice? And you can even share your own thoughts. You just,
Avoiding
you speak somebody, you notice.
company of others, avoiding company of friends and family.
Good. Yeah. When you avoid others.
When I'm eating more, I can tell, like, okay, I'm lonely.
Ah,
It's not that I'm hungry, I'm lonely
right. When you're
and bored. Yeah.
That's a big one.
You don't
If
feel
being
like
quiet
dressing
around
up.
others.
You don't feel like, you don't feel like changing. You don't feel like dressing up and looking, good. You just want to remain as you are because there's no interest in life. You don't have anyone to share with.
Yeah. There's like no motivation at all.
I think we heard
smile on
from.
your face.
What was that?
I said no smile. You don't smile that
Yes.
much.
Smile. Yeah. It takes so much energy to smile.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say being quiet around when others are around, you just remain quiet. You're
Yeah.
not very good of yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, you almost withdraw, right? You
Not present.
withdraw
Right.
from the company.
Right.
And again, that takes so much energy to be present, to add to the conversation.
Exactly.
And it takes so much energy, especially when we're feeling so lonely, we're feeling so sad, hopeless inside. It's so difficult to put the energy in being present and laughing and enjoying the people's company and being able to add to the conversation. That takes so much out of us when we're feeling the exact opposite inside. So those are really, really good examples of how you can recognize loneliness in yourself, as well as how you can recognize loneliness in others. Some other ones that we also want to address and kind of bring some light to is, physical symptoms. Sometimes loneliness can be seen as a physical symptom, such as discomfort, fatigue, right? Exhaustion, feeling tired all the time, wanting to sleep all the time, wanting to take naps all the time. Anxiety, just feeling too anxious to be around people, feeling too nervous to go outside, too nervous to go to a gathering, to the store. Feeling a lot of tension in your body, feeling like, if I go somewhere, if I'm around someone, that could lead to problems. And then again, withdrawing. So staying away, not wanting to engage. People can also appear more restless, uneasy, or just uncomfortable. And you can see that in their body language. Maybe, they're kind of looking around constantly. Maybe their hands are tapping, their feet are tapping. There's a sense of just uneasiness in the body.
Loneliness also, people may choose to stay at home, go to bed, or even go to sleep. You just want to confine yourself in the house, away from others, and just not share yourself or go, just take the step to go out.
The other one that you guys mentioned, which is also really, really important, is does that person initiate contact? So let's go ahead and say it's me, right? And I'm always reaching out to each one of you guys, and I'm calling you every week, and I'm checking up on you, and we have really wonderful conversations. And then you start noticing, okay, Lamba's not calling anymore. It's been weeks and weeks, and like I call her, she's not responding to my calls. That could be a big, big flag of me. There being change in me. Maybe I'm experiencing something that's bringing me down, maybe experiencing loneliness, and so now I'm not engaging anymore. I'm not putting myself out there anymore. I'm not trying to find that physical comfort of being able to talk to someone, that emotional comfort of being able to talk to someone anymore.
Now we want to talk about how do you intervene when someone is lonely.
So maybe let's ask them that. Like, how do you guys intervene when someone is lonely?
Before we share some of our thoughts, how would you intervene when someone is lonely?
You call that person.
Yeah.
You call that person, great.
Absolutely.
Make that person talk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Take up a topic and see how she or he, responds.
Perfect. That's a really good one.
That person. Go and visit that person and persuade that person to go out, to take that person out for a walk or something, to just lift her mood up, and that's it. You can't be a doctor to treat her like that. Otherwise.
Very good. Yes, absolutely.
What else? What else do you do for others? Or maybe what is something that you will want somebody else to do for you?
Ask me if I'm okay.
Good. Yeah, that's a big one.
You could send a little something to them in the mail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Some funny card or something.
Buy her a gift or something. Buy her a gift.
Buy a gift.
Put something for her and something that is liking.
Yeah, like take the time to think about that person and choose something that's meaningful and send it to them to show that you've thought about them, that you care about them. That's a really good one.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing all those. And what you guys suggested, right? Asking about their loneliness, reaching out to them, being able to spend time with the person in silence or in conversation. It doesn't have to be a conversation. You can just go there, visit, and then you can just sit in silence. Oh. Just being physically there for them will mean the world to them. Assist the person in keeping contact with people important to them as well. Make sure that you're helping them, you're assisting them, and you're also supporting the individual to keep contact with important people that are in his or her life. You want to explore the nature of loneliness with the person.
Yeah, what's making them lonely?
Yeah.
And then kind of going back to all those things that we talked about where, is it physical symptoms? Is it feelings of uneasiness? Is it fear of being judged? What is it that's making them feel lonely? Or is it just the sense of like, hey, there's no one around. I feel isolated because of the pandemic. I'm too scared to be around people. I'm too scared to go out. I'm afraid of my health. Like, what is it that's the root for that loneliness?
Or there's lack of resources, right? So some of them might not drive. They don't have transportation means. Mm-hmm. They're probably just waiting at home, waiting to have someone come and pick them up. It's very important. Also develop community support for the person.
Which all of us doing a
That's
great,
what all of
great
us
job
is
of.
doing. Yeah, it's something like that, or other activities that is happening in the community. Like I know, even with all of community services, you guys are going out to Brooker's community services when pre-pandemic, you guys were doing yoga classes and stretching and exercise classes. That is a plus. That is a plus. Even aside from that, you call everyone within your group and you say, hey, let's meet up in the park. And you do something, do a physical activity there. So those are very important elements.
And another aspect of that is, while all of community services is doing that, and I'm amazed and I'm glad that they're doing that, that also doesn't stop you guys from meeting each other via Zoom, via Skype, via whatever platform you want to use to continue those relations, to continue doing meditation over Zoom, to do yoga over Zoom, to sing songs over Zoom together, to share stories, whether they're religious stories or stories from the past, just being able to have that connection and reaching out and making that a routine, a constant in your life, and really making that your purpose. Like today, I'm going to take that step to schedule that meeting. That can create purpose.
And you always want to create short-term goals, right? On a day-to-day basis. And that's what we're trying to do. And we would encourage you to do is every morning when you're waking up, or every night, you want to sit down and you tell yourself, literally, what is 1 or 2 things that you want to accomplish for yourself, either for yourself or anything that you want to do, or for someone else, and just notice how much you feel better and how good you feel. Now, overcoming isolation and loneliness, from being,
like, how do we elevate, right?
How do we elevate? Now we get to the factor of how do we want to elevate from this place? Well, we want to be able to engage in daily routines. It's very important that you have a daily routine for yourself. You're waking up, you get up with your partner or by yourself, or you call a friend. What you do is you go out for a walk, for a 30-minute walk or for an hour walk, and that's something that you've created for yourself. Or you're meeting them out at a park. You create a daily routine for yourself. You know what? Today I'm gonna make sure that I cook a meal a day. Very important. Even force yourself to go out in marches. Be a part of bigger gathering groups where you're that are happening around your neighborhood. And then what you want to do is you want to go out and schedule a march. Go and participate in these programs that are working towards good causes, like the Breast Cancer Association, the Heart Association of America. These are good causes that you want to take part in, because you also want to make sure that you are a part of this community. You are part of our community, and it's very important to have you and your family and your loved ones to be a part of that, right? And that's what makes is every single one of us partaking in these programs.
And also, your guys' group is so diverse. That's something that came up to my mind, is even having like Zoom sessions of cooking. One person teaching the rest of the group a meal from the culture, a meal from, a meal that they love from their culture. And, just sending a message of like, okay, this week, like, I want to volunteer to show you guys how to make this meal. These are the ingredients you need. Let's meet on Wednesday via Zoom at 7 p.m. or in person and cook together, right? So then you're looking forward to something, and you're looking forward to doing something with people that you like, and not people that you can't absolutely stand. And so those kind of things can help you kind of wake up that day, can help you have a purpose and meaning for that day, to get out of the door, to get moving, and to make sure that you feel like that you have your community. Absolutely.
And the other thing we want to take a look at is, in order to elevate our health, is our physical and our mental health as well. Healthcare systems, and interventions are key, especially as we get older, right? People generally are social by nature, but then what we also want to make sure that high quality social relationships can help them live longer and healthier lives. So it's very important that you utilize and take care of yourself by going to the doctor regularly, making sure that you're getting your physical examinations, making sure that you're giving blood work done. Medications that you're prescribed, make sure that you're taking them on time. These are very important elements that need to be implemented in your day-to-day lifestyles. What can you eat? What can you not eat? What do you have to avoid, right? So, for instance, if you have high blood pressure, make sure you avoid high consumption of salt. That's something that we have to be mindful of. healthcare systems are important, yet they are underused. Partner in identifying loneliness and preventing medical conditions associated is with loneliness as well. So we always encourage people to go ahead and take care of themselves. And also, lastly, I would say utilizing geriatric services. This is something that I did in our adult day health center. Folks that were coming in, and this is something you can talk to your doctor about, but making sure that if you have a geriatric services, utilize it. It's very important. What they will do is they'll help monitor your physical and your mental health and help you. It will give you, what they'll do is they'll help you understand and keep you on track of where you're at, even physically and mentally, over a long period of time, even throughout the year. Where are you? Are you seeing kind of a plateau? Are you plateauing, where that means that you're not deteriorating? And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that you don't deteriorate every 3 months or every 6 months, right? You're not having forgetfulness. You're oriented to person, place, time. Your short-term memory, your long-term memory deficits. Those are very important for you to be able to gather and to understand. If you see a decrease, well, guess what? They'll implement a program where you can either sustain your mental and physical health, or it'll help elevate. By giving you guys and implementing programs, and they will tell you what you should do to help your memory and your physical health.
Definitely.
That's your doctor who will do that?
Yes. If you go to your doctor, so adult day healthcare centers have it, and then when you go to the doctor, you can ask for it. If they allow, or you can request, hey, I would like to be seen by geriatric, and what they'll do is they'll monitor your mental health and your physical health, mainly your mental health, to make sure that you are oriented and you can track and track of your progress of where you're at mentally from today. As long as you're going there, let's say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're able to track your memory, how oriented you are. And what this does is, I think one of the beauty of it is that it helps you and helps your family, most importantly, understand where you're at. If they notice that there's a decline taking place, there's better interventions that can be implemented prior on, versus something happens and let's say that, and this has happened, for instance, in our seniors, where they wake up, families don't know that their parents are having early stages of Alzheimer's and dementia, and then after 2-3 years, they're not in the house. Well, where are they? What happened? Why aren't they picking up their phone? Well, guess what? They went out and they're outside somewhere, and they don't know how to get home. That's what you want to try to avoid in the long term. Yeah.
So we really wanted to kind of hone in on loneliness and isolation today, and we found this poem that we felt like really, really, encapsulated that sensation of feeling forgotten, of feeling isolated, feeling lonely, feeling like the world has almost been unable to see you, almost feeling invisible sometimes. And so we chose this poem by Ing Malgard that we felt like really, really did a great job at encapsulating all those emotions, and we wanted to share that with you and see if a lot of you guys felt like this was something that kind of struck a chord. So it's called Forgotten. Once upon a time in September, when springtime's tender blooms burst forth, the joyous poet did write a tale to remember, of brilliant colors, softest perfumes, birds in flight, wondrous light. When morning came, the poet awoke to feel the prison chains of truth, to find that he had been dreaming of former days of youth. Health and strength now gone, the old man weeps, no one sees his tears fall. And so we felt like that poem, like we just want to give it kind of a moment, but we really felt like that poem really focuses on what the aging experience can be like. Feeling like sometimes life moves so fast, where we dream, we experience how wonderful life can be, how capable we feel in that life, how surrounded by things we are. And sometimes it can feel like that was just a dream we woke from, things we're unable to do anymore because either we don't have the ability to do those things anymore, or we don't have those individuals in our lives anymore. And so we experience these beautiful things as dreams, and then we wake up and it's an experience of I'm alone, I'm sad, I'm hurting, I'm crying, and no one sees. And so I hope, that was a poem that, really kind of encapsulated again what this presentation is and what loneliness can be like. And especially helping those individuals who, are maybe not the elderly, the children of the elderly, the grandchildren, realize like our elders are feeling lonely. They are feeling isolated. It is, it is the elders' responsibility to share that, but it's also a bigger responsibility of the people around you guys to also take that minute and say, are you okay? How have you been? Let's talk. Let's go for a walk. I care about you. I see you.
And it's also very important, for family members at home as well, for the younger generation to even take really half an hour a day. Just sit, even if you don't have to say anything, just sit with your loved ones or with your elders, right, with your parents or grandparents, and just sit there. If you're having a hard time, elaborating your feelings or your thoughts, or you might be uncomfortable with sharing things with them, right? Just sit and see what kind of wonders that will bring along. Today you're sitting with them. Tomorrow you're sitting with them in silence. The following third day or the fourth day, you'll start to smile at each other, and then little by little, just throw in little topics and just see where that leads. Both the relationship between yourself and your loved ones and your elders. And then lastly,
yeah, so we wanted to also kind of end the presentation today with a resource before we go to questions. A resource that we both found really, really impactful is a 24-hour friendship line for the elderly. So make sure you have a pen and a paper to write this down, because this is a really important resource. What it is, it's an accredited hotline, warm line for people who are 16 above, who are feeling depressed, or they're feeling isolated, they're feeling lonely, they're grieving the loss of somebody important in their life. Maybe you're struggling with some kind of substance abuse, or you're having thoughts of ending your life, you're having thoughts of not wanting to live anymore. The 24-hour friendship line has a call line. It's basically like a hotline that you can call and talk to somebody who is a professional who can help you. You can call multiple times throughout the day. They can provide interpreters if you struggle with English, or if you prefer to speak in a different language. The line number that you will call would be 800-971-0016. And again, that's 800-971-0016. And they also have another great resource too. So it's the same agency, 24-hour friendship line. Their other service it's a call out service. So it's basically a friendship line staff member or a trained volunteer who would call you. They would call you to check up on you, to provide emotional support, so you can have that sensation of, there is somebody who's going to call me, who's going to care about me, who's going to want to have a conversation with me. So if you want somebody to do that for you through this agency, through this hotline, what you can do is you can call the following number, which is 415-750-4111. And again, that's 415-750-4111, and basically provide a referral for yourself and say, I'm really interested in this service and I would love for myself to enroll into this and have somebody to go ahead and give me a call and check up on me. Outside of that, again, as Wali had mentioned earlier, if you feel like you're having symptoms of depression, if you feel like you've been feeling sad, you've been grieving for over 2 weeks and it's getting in the way of your day-to-day life, also reach out to a therapist. We're here to support you. We're here to normalize what you're going through. We're here to help you, be able to either accept this new chapter in your life and find strength in yourself, find strength in going on and finding meaning and finding purpose, and just supporting you through this. So please, please, please don't allow, shame, especially, I think therapy has a lot of, biases, stigmas, taboo around it in our cultures. Don't allow that to stop you. I know sometimes we always say, what is somebody going to say if they know about this? What is somebody going to think if they know I'm going to therapy? Therapy is so confidential. The moment you come into therapy, nobody gets to find out that this is happening. We don't have that right to go ahead and tell somebody, because then that's going to hurt you. And we don't want to hurt our clients. We want to be there to support you, to be able to, you know, go through those experiences with you, to remind you that there's always somebody there. There's always somebody there who cares about you. So please, 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 if you ever find yourself struggling to the point where you're thinking about feeling hopeless, you feel like, you know, it's better to just die, reach out to someone.
I
There's a
would like,
comment.
yes.
It says therapy is so expensive. You're correct. Therapy can be very, very expensive. So something I suggest is make sure you check different agencies. Some agencies have a sliding scale. I used to work at a clinic where sometimes we would charge only $5 for a 1 hour session. If I knew my client couldn't even pay $5, we would do it for free. So there's a lot of agencies who will work with you, who will see, okay, how much can you afford? We never want, you know, money to be that barrier that stops you from getting the help. There's a lot of also, you know, community resources now. There's churches, there's mosques, there's synagogues who will actually help pay for your services, who will work with that therapist and say, allow them to come in for 20 sessions, for 12 sessions, and we'll cover that for them. So do not allow a cost to stop you. There's a lot of resources out there for this.
And the other thing is that if you have insurance is probably the primary way you want to go about it.
Yeah.
That's number one. But other than that, like Lamba stated, you know, it's always doable. You just have to look around and the services will be there for you.
I also wanted to mention that we at Olive have a program called Olive Friend, which is kind of like the call out program you just said, that you will be buddied up with an Olive Friend volunteer. If you feel that there's an isolated senior, homebound, unable to go out, we can connect you to a volunteer who will schedule those phone calls. So that is an option that Olive does provide. And currently we have a lot of students, college students, who are our volunteers, and they can call you, and even with technology support if you have some questions, because that is, I know, a huge reason for us to feel anxious, not feeling connected. So Olive does provide that for those of you who know someone who could benefit from a service like that. So something to think about too.
And something else just to mention, and I know different cultures feel differently about this, but also getting an emotional support animal. If you feel like this is something that your family, you know, is okay with, that, you know, your culture, your religion is okay with, whether that's getting a dog, getting a cat, getting a bird, sometimes having a pet, an animal in the home can provide a lot of support. You can look forward to spending time, going outside with them, talking to them. So that's also something to keep in mind if you're experiencing loneliness and if you're open to that idea.
Even stuffed animals, right? Stuffed animals, or like dolls. Like we used to have that at our Alzheimer's daycare where I used to work. They would play with baby dolls, like having a baby in your hand.
Yes, it does.
And music. So again, if this is something that you're okay with in your culture, you know, something that Wali and I were looking at earlier was this video of this elderly community who felt very alone, felt very isolated by their children. And what they did was they started getting together on one particular day and they started singing together. They started listening to music together. They would, you know, just get printouts from the internet and then share them with everyone and sing together. Right? So whatever that feels culturally appropriate, religiously appropriate for you, and just appropriate to your life, to your personality, engaging those things and bringing other people in. Like, how amazing would it be for me to share a song that, you know, maybe is very important in my life that you don't know, and us singing together, and the next week switching that up and having you do that. Sharing poems, bringing our own poetry, writing poetry together, painting together. So many different activities you could do. I think there's another question.
What is it?
Let's see. How do you differentiate between early Alzheimer's or dementia from loneliness and depression?
So it's, the terms are kind of interchangeable. it's kind of the same thing when it
Well,
comes to.
so it's not really the same thing. So the criteria are much different between depression, Alzheimer's, and loneliness. So with depression, again, it's that 2-week period. So if you're experiencing up to 6 symptoms of depression, so that could be, you know, problems with sleep, problems with appetite, difficulty with concentration, not feeling hopeful about the future. There's also like things that you used to enjoy that you don't enjoy anymore, so loss of interest. If you're experiencing these different kind of criteria, these different symptoms for more than 2 weeks, then the therapist or the doctor that you're working with may indicate like, you know what, you might be experiencing some depressive symptoms. Let's sit down and do an assessment together. And based off that assessment, we can tell, okay, are you feeling, you know, severely depressed? Are you feeling just, you know, a little bit of mood changes, which is kind of normal. So they're going to be able to go based off of that, looking at your symptoms and how long you're experiencing those symptoms. The same thing applies to Alzheimer's and dementia. There's criterias. There's like a list of things that they look at. Okay, are you experiencing this thing? Are you experiencing forgetfulness? How often do you forget things? Let's discuss examples. Do you sometimes forget your address? Do you sometimes forget how to go back home? Do you forget people's names, but you recognize their faces? And this isn't like strangers. It's like, you know, you don't recognize the name of your child who you've been with for the past 40 years. You know who they are, you know their faces, but you can't recognize their names. So looking at these different criterias, there's also assessments in all of these different diagnoses that we complete. And based off of that information, we're able to say, okay, this individual is meeting all the criteria for Alzheimer's. This individual is meeting all the criteria for depression. And so that's how we go about it. And it's something that we will do with you to make sure that, you know, it's not just the doctor, the therapist doing all these things behind your back, but you're a really big part of that communication. Everything we're doing, we're sharing it with you. Okay, look, you gave this answer on this question. This is what this means. This is what it says about your depression.
And also it's very important, and thank you for explaining it. The other thing is that you have to notice that in these symptoms for both Alzheimer's and dementia, they have an overlap. Yeah. So you'll see that, you know, folks have Alzheimer's and dementia. It's combined together because their symptoms are mostly similar. It's just that there are very certain things that are very different in it.
Yeah, and it's also the progression. So, you know, initially people might say, okay, you have some symptoms of dementia because the progression of it is very slow. And then once it becomes more severe, it can turn into like Alzheimer's and more. Yeah. Okay, so we just got a message to wrap up.
Thank you.
Can I ask a short question?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, you know, even in company, you can still be lonely. Like you are old and you have younger people in the house.
Yeah.
Sure.
And, you are just lying there as if you are a piece of furniture or something. And people are going about with their work, but you're lonely. You have got plenty of people around in the house, but you're still lonely.
Yeah, and you know, that's such a good point that you brought up. And if we think about what is it that's making us feel lonely, it's that lack of being able to connect to them, right? Like as a senior, as an elderly, our experiences are different. We're in a different even mental state. We think about different things than the younger generation does, right? So it becomes so difficult to connect to them, to be able to enjoy the same conversations they're having. So I think at that point, when you're feeling that, just recognizing that and saying, okay, I'm noticing this about myself. Now that I notice that, you know, maybe my family, yes, I love hanging out with them. There are times where I feel like there's conversations I can't participate in because maybe I don't care about those conversations. It's important for you to recognize that and then say, okay, it's so important for me now to reach out to a friend that's my age, a community member that's, you know, from my country or from my community or someone that enjoys the things I enjoys the conversation I enjoy, somebody who I feel like, you know what, we're relatable. We have something to connect on. Somebody I feel like I can enjoy time with, can communicate with, and reach out to that person and say, hey, let's hang out.
And the other thing I would like to add on to that is if you look at Erik Erikson's stages of theories and social development models that he has produced, there's 8 stages. So the last stage is called ego, integrity versus despair. It's the 8th stage of the final stage of the Erikson's stage of theory and psychosocial development. So what this stage does is that it begins at approximately 865 and ends at depth. It is during this time that we contemplate our accomplishments and can develop integrity, meaning that by the time, you know, we're 65, we look at our lives, right? We always have this, what we do is we look at our life, what we've done in the past 65 years. It's either we live with dignity and we have developed an integrity way of looking at our lives, where we sit down with our grandkids, we look at other peoples that are surrounded by us, or even by ourselves. We always think of, or we have this thought process of, you know what, I enjoyed life. Thankfully, I did what I did. I did my best. I'm very happy, and I'm very pleased with the way my kids are raised, where I am in life. I'm peaceful what I've done. Versus, you look at yourself in a different lens, which is called the despair lens. This is where you will always question yourself, even after the age of 65, and you'll say, "What if I did this? Why is this still happening to me? Why is my life not going the way I wanted it to go?" You will always question yourself on that, and that's where it becomes, it can become questionable. It's either you are living a life of really dignity for yourself because you're sharing your thoughts, your successes with your grandkids, or you're, living in despair, as Erickson suggests, you're constantly questioning yourself like you didn't make any accomplishments.
Yeah. Another suggestion that I have is also for you to be proactive with your family. So if you feel like there's conversations that you're not connecting on, or if you feel like, there's no relatability, you take the lead and you present a conversation, an activity, something that your family can do. So let's go ahead and say, maybe it's just you discussing like the history of your family, you guys creating a family tree together, them learning something through your lens, them learning something that, you're teaching them about yourself, your family, your culture, your religion, whatever that is. So instead of taking kind of like the back seat in the car, now you become the driver. You tell them, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to do. And so then you hold yourself accountable of saying, you know what, I'm not going to withdraw for my family. I'm not isolate myself from the family, but instead I'm going to lead my family. It doesn't have to be every day, but whenever, once a week, once a month, whenever you feel like, you know what, maybe they can learn something from me today. Maybe I have the energy today to do this activity. Let's get a big piece of paper, telling the kids, get a paper, get markers, let's come together. Okay, draw a family tree. Let me tell you where everything started from. Let me tell you where people migrated from. Our elders, you guys have so much knowledge. And I think sometimes as youngsters, we don't really acknowledge that. And then it becomes too late at some point. We're like, oh man, I really wish I knew all those stories grandma knew or mom knew. I really wish I knew more about her life. Like, what was it like for her when she was growing up? And so kind of being proactive in sharing those stories and sharing those experiences.
And it's very important you said that, even when you suggest that, even our own parents, right? Whenever we meet, over the weekend, or we want to do something, no, you guys make the plan and we'll just come along. Like, no, we want your thoughts. We want you to give us, what is it that you want to do? No, you guys are youngsters. You guys know what to do. You just make the plan and just take us with you, right?
Yeah.
And this happens, and which is okay. But once in a while, please give your thoughts and inputs.
Yeah.
And I think you said, Brother Shabir, you have a question?
Unmute yourself, Brother Shabir. You're muted.
Okay. Have you done any research within the community where cultural barriers have created all kinds of challenges for us to face? Where I'm a researcher and as a student of cultural anthropologist, I found all kinds of things within different religious ethnic groups. Have you done any research within the community where you have different kind of data that indicates to you as to what kind of different challenges we're facing within the community to address this issue from within rather than without?
So personally, we haven't done any research on that ourselves. It's really hard to actually collect this kind of research with our community, just because a lot of times our community members don't want to participate. They don't want to do the surveys, but there has been research on the specific topic. A research that's coming up in my mind is actually one that they did in the San Francisco community with the elderly. And what they found in that research was their findings consisted of one, a lot of the elders who now live with their families, they come from a different culture. They come from really, from different countries. They're very highly educated, right? They have a really strong role in their family back home. But when they come here, whether they migrate really earlier on or later on in their life, they feel insignificant in the families. They feel like the family's not turning to them anymore. They don't feel like they're that like head person of the family anymore. So they feel very isolated in that. Yeah. Another barrier is the language. Sometimes it's very difficult to learn English. And then when your grandkids all speak English and they speak like broken, Farsi, broken Urdu, broken Spanish, like it's so hard to communicate with those children. So we can feel isolated in that way too, because they're not turning to us anymore. Something else that happens, which Wali described, is a lack of transportation. Sometimes our elders don't know how to drive, or they're too scared to learn how to drive because it can be very overwhelming. The last one that I really remember kind of sticking out for me is our elderly can experience like guilt. They feel guilty for asking their family members, their children, their grandchildren, their daughter-in-laws, son-in-laws to do things for them. They feel ashamed because think about it, our people, like the people in our elders in our community, they're so strong, they're so independent. And so when you come to this age, to this phase where you become an elderly and your body doesn't work the same way, your mind doesn't work the same way, it becomes really difficult to depend on someone when you've been so on your own the whole time, standing on your own feet, making your own decisions. It becomes very difficult to say, hey, I need your help. Hey, I need you to take me to this place or to that place. So we can start feeling very guilty, and that becomes a big barrier. We stop asking for that help, for what we need, and we start withdrawing.
And that's where the piece of shame and
judgment
comes into place. And one of the other elements is that, with research, it's starting to open up a little, but the interaction between, a person who migrates to this country, our elders who, with majority don't go out of their culture to partake in other programs, or they don't meet, or they don't sit down with other community members or even their neighbors. That's another element, right, of it, or factors behind it, versus their kids growing up in this country. It's different, right? There has been shown links of kind of a disconnect in that generational gap, which also leads to, well, why isn't my words being taken seriously now? Because there's that lack of understanding between the two. Yes, sir.
One more question quickly I have is that there is a breakup of the hierarchical structure, the culturally and religiously. Yes. Or have you found in your at least work where grandparents would feel that I and my wisdom is not part of the equation of my children and my grandchildren? Have you found that lack of that also makes you much more lonelier without realizing that I have no contribution whatsoever in my children who are not connecting with me as far as what I have to offer to them, and there's no room for it. And grandchildren sometimes are perhaps much more closer in that respect, but they're interested in, but the children are not. Have you found that disconnect?
Yes. Yeah, that's a huge disconnect that we have found. Something that we have noticed working with the population that we work with. We work with a lot of South Asian, Middle Eastern clients that come from collectivistic culture. So what that means is really that thing of it takes a village to raise a child. Yeah. Everyone's involved. Grandpa's involved. Aunts are involved. Cousins are involved, right? So in those kind of, neighbors are involved. In those kind of situations, there's so much respect given to all of the elders, right? There's just so much respect given to them. You don't question what is being said to you. You know that whatever is being said to you comes from a really good intention. Right? There's this idea of whatever is best for the community is best for that person, right? There's a harmony in that. The difficulty is when our kids grow up here, the culture here is much, much different, right? Our kids from a young age are taught you're special, you're unique, right? It becomes a very you, everything about you, right? And it's not taught that way to like hurt that child or make that child a bad individual, right? It's to raise their self-esteem. Yeah. But at some point that turns into a very individualistic kind of culture, right? And it becomes, okay, well, I want to do this, and I'm not thinking about how this is going to impact my family. This is my choice. This is my decision, right? And that's so much different than that collectivistic culture, which is like, no, the decision that's going to be taken is the one that's best for the whole community, for the whole family. And so that's where the struggle comes. A child comes to you and says, Grandpa, Dad, like, I don't care what you say. This is best for me. This is what I want to do. Right. And you're saying, but I'm trying to give you the best advice. I know these things. I've been through these things. I have good intentions for you. But for them, it feels like, no, you're taking away my freedom. You're not trusting me. You're not trusting my capability. And it's a whole different battle.
Yes, this is what I also meant. You know, you can contribute so much. Like my grandchildren, when they were had homework to do, I said, I can help you. I can help you with any subject. They said, oh, you don't know how to do it. You don't know. I said, no, I teach you. I know everything. I know more than your teacher. But
Yeah.
You feel that whatever little knowledge you have, that is not being used, and you feel as if you are useless, like.
Yeah. No, and it's how they're looking at you too, right? They're going to school. There's that teacher role. Okay, I have to respect her. That's just grandma. Grandma just sits at home all day, right? So they almost forget, no, grandma. And this is why it's so important for them to know what grandma used to do. Grandma is very powerful. Grandma's holding the whole house together. Sometimes we forget these things. Mom is holding the whole house together. Dad is doing these different things. And so it's almost having like a career profession day in your home and teaching your children, this is who I am.
And not just that, but just making sure that, you know, the importance of involvement in your child's life from earlier stages of life is very important. And what, you know, the research also kind of understands is that families who were, let's say, who were struggling when they first came here, they didn't get the time to spend as much time with their kids because they were really busy with trying to navigate the system, trying to help themselves, right? So that kind of created a disconnect versus folks that initially were well off, that came in, you know, that were able to spend some time together. That showed a different spec in terms of, you know, how their family structure was, how did they see things eye to eye, or there was a mutual understanding between the elders and the new, you know, and their grandkids and their kids. It's also important that, you know, how much time we put in and how much efforts we put in with our families. That's also very important. It's something that heavily needs to be, I mean, again, pointed out.
Can I leave a thought with you?
Of course.
In your interaction with the elderly, where you're focusing on elders only, I think what I found in my work is that the focus should also include the next generations, for them to be re-educated.
Yes.
From the individualistic society to connect with the elderly, where there is society is actually taking them away from them. So I think in your work, if you can focus and refocus on educating our children and grandchildren, to connect with them and educating them about why we are feeling isolated. Sometimes our children and grandchildren are responsible for it, not the society.
Exactly.
And I agree with that. I feel like you should go to every mosque once things open up again and give this talk, like he said, about, you know, introducing the elderly again to their families. It's like, you know, they have value, they have wisdom, they have, you know, they've had careers, they've had these emotional problems in the past, they've had children, you know, it's like we have a wealth of information. You know, when I try to guide my kids, I don't try to tell them what to do, but if they are struggling, I try to guide them once in a while, and they'll say, oh, Mom, you had a career 30 years ago. Like, you know, things are different. I said, no, people are not different. You have a problem with your boss. It's the same kind of problem, you know, that maybe I had with mine, or this is how you would handle problems with your peers at work. You know, I mean, you have something to offer. Definitely. And I think you need to go around and talk to younger people about these things too. What he was saying, you know, like look at your parents, look at your elderly in the family. You know, don't take them for granted. They're always going to be there either.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
like
Right.
I'll find out about the family tree when I Google it or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. It's like you talk to them. Like my parents died maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. My mom died and my dad died about 6 years ago. And, you know, I wish that I had had more stories because I want to call them up sometimes and say, you know, what about this? What about that? Because I lived in California for like 40 years and I left them when I was 23 in Pennsylvania because I thought I knew better, you know.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be on my own. So I definitely was on my own, you know, I got to do everything by myself, you know, and that was hard. But I think the kids need to realize, like, you know, your parents have value. They really do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you're bringing up such an important topic. Like, if you think about it, even the society is capitalizing on this now, like 23andMe, DNA, all of
Yeah.
these tests, right? That are telling
Right.
us, okay, these are your relatives. Why are we paying $100, $200, $300 to do these tests to find out who our relatives are when we have our mother, our grandparent, our aunt, all these people with all this valuable information who can say, yes, you have a cousin in Pakistan or you have a cousin in Europe. This is their name. This is how they're connected to you. So
Right.
it's become a really sad thing where I think the younger generation is forgetting, like, there is somebody who can give me this information for free. I don't have to pay so much to get it.
Yeah, and I think
Right.
I know time is coming to an end as well. And we would want to conclude this as well. Again, it's an amazing conversation. But yes, with us, you know, realizing that it's a conditioning process that has taken place, you know, as the newer generation does, or, you know, us spending time here, you know, in America, you know, it's a different system that is really has encapsulated the thinking process behind why a person thinks a certain way, right? It's also very important that we always say that educate yourself as much as you can and be open to different ideas. And also, if it means to visit different countries, different cultures, or going back to your own country once in a while, if you can afford, it's very important to do that for yourself and for your kids. With that being said, I think that's thank you so much. We actually enjoyed the discussion.
We want to respect your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Olive Community Services is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Southern California that provides culturally appropriate services to seniors, their family, and the community. Through its physical and virtual interactive programs, Olive engages participants in a variety of ways that promotes health and well-being. To learn more about Olive Community Services, to get involved, or to make a donation, please visit www.olivecs.org or email info@olivecs.org. Be a change maker, and together, let's live, learn, and thrive.